Hello. It is our second line day. Gate 20 in the second line is called the dogmatist. So when we look at the 25th gate in the second line, we find it is called the existentialist. And through genetic continuity, it means then that all second lines have this quality. It's not a concept for second lines. They are inherently existential because, of course, they're left alone and they're just busy about going about whatever their thing is in the now. They're deeply absorbed. They don't know that anything else is going on in the world particularly, not until somebody calls them out and disturbs them. So here we have the dogmatist with the lifetime learning of restrictive and intentionally limited understanding. They're in the now, but what they're projecting out into the world is quite a narrow field. They see certain things in the now, but they don't see everything in the now because they don't have the entire picture. And due to that, they can be quite dogmatic about that now, their own now, the view that they have. The exaltation says the limitation, if personal and exclusive, is less negative through ascetic withdrawal, a restrictive awareness of the now. So these are people who can only be in the now when they don't have to deal with a lot of other stuff. Ra said that if you have a child with the second line in the 20th gate, you really have to work with them to be ready to get them to go out into the world in the now, to actually partake in the world in the now, because these are children and adults who can end up being daydreamers, not really wanting to participate in the now or participate in the world at all. The detriment says the power to lead others down a narrow path, the gift through expression of leading others down a narrow and restrictive path. The dogmatist, it doesn't really have any influence, because it's lower trigram. And they can be very fixed in the way that they exist in the now. If they're called out, if somebody is looking through their window and says, "Oh, I'd like to be able to do that. Can you show me how to do that?" Then their gift is to be able to guide people in that way, to be an example in that way. But they won't be able to take them down any other path than the one that they're on, because that's the only one that they know about. They're only going to be able to take others in the way in which they know, the way in which they are comfortable in the now. According to Ra, second lines are the most explosive lines, that's what he said. And they're the line that appears to be the most different between when they're called out and when they're left alone. Because the moment they're called out is the moment that they actually begin to operate in relationship with the other. And of course, second lines, lower trigram, not really equipped to engage with the other in many ways. They don't know the other is there. And they are really at their best when they are alone, in the now, living out their personal destiny, living out who they are in the now. All of these line explorations, they're generalizations. There's so much more to consider when you look at your chart, when you bring the transit in, you lay the two over. So it's really important to get that holistic view. You may resonate to elements of this or not, but please, I would really ask you, invite you, put the information into context. Okay, I am informing you to do this. Put the information into context, get the full picture. It's particularly important when we look at gates like this in a solar position in the chart, because it determines the nature of a person. We're looking at something that represents 70% of programming. 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun, transformed through its relationship with the form principle of the earth. This cross that comes from our personality and design activations, together representing 70% of who we are. In this sense and in this context, these lines as a solar position, they're giving really important insights into the nature of a person, ourselves. We have the 34th line 2 called momentum. So when our second lines are called out, it can be really useful to have some powerful momentum behind them. The dogmatist can use this power to show people the way, their way, to empower them with their existential path. You know, it can be very hard to wait for the call when you've got all this power running through you, and when it's connected to the throat, it could be even more challenging for this manifesting generator to wait to be called out. But that's the challenge, that's the lesson. This is the discomfort that can be sat with and explored. Mercury goes into gate 24 at 8:49. This is the gate of rationalization. This is the gate in the ajna. These are individual thinkers bound to contemplate. It's very appropriate, being in gate 20 in the sun, bound to contemplate until a concept becomes clear and it has the potential to impact others, because this is individual and mutation is part of their process. So this gate is called the return. I've got a pigeon. Go away. I've got a pigeon returning for the sultanas I put out for the blackbird. And it's returning again. And I'm going to call this pigeon 24. Hello, 24. I am not a number. I am a free pigeon. This is nearly finished, I promise. So you've got, the mind is returning again and again, and it comes to this point where a concept finally emerges and can be communicated to others. And you might be able to see this around you, or you know, pick it up in conversations or in what you see in the newspaper, that the same things are going around and around and around as Mercury transits this gate. The moon is still in gate 28. This is the gate of the game player in the spleen, of the splenic center. I had a teacher once who told me off for calling it the spleen. It's not the spleen. The spleen has a biological association, but it is the splenic center. Okay, it's the splenic center. We remain in the splenic center for gate 44 at 14:30, the tribal gate of alertness. You know, this is the archetype of the personnel manager. It's a memory gate, and as such, it has a relationship to water. So you may want to pay attention to your hydration during this transit, and especially if you have this gate consistently. And this doesn't mean that you should go out and drink 5 liters a day or whatever the current recommendation is. You know, what is correct for you? How much water is it correct for you to drink? Look at other factors in your chart, you know? So it's not necessarily that we have to dig into what we're told is correct. Question all of these homogenized edicts, you know, that say we should eat this many vegetables and drink this much red wine, which isn't, or this much chocolate. But what is correct? What does your body actually want? Is this something that you would like to explore? The moon being in the splenic center at the moment, you know, it's bringing that focus to our health and well-being after all. And then gate 1, out of the splenic center, gate 1 at 1:27, the gate of self-expression in the G center, our desire to express ourselves in a unique and creative way, and the ability to focus on the creative process without concern for outside opinion. Yes. This is an individual gate, and the dominant theme here is the deep need to express unique and authentic individuality, rooted in one's own direction, unhindered by established rules of the collective. So bring it on. Power to individual self-expression. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I really appreciate your presence. Without you being here, I would just be talking to the ether or the pigeons. I'd be talking to 24. I'm going now. Go gently. I will see you tomorrow.